If you've spent any time at all, following the news lately, especially around big public figures, it feels like a firehouse, right?
Oh, absolutely. A constant stream. Headlines, court stuff, old stories popping up again, economic numbers.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot to try and sort through.
It is. And well, that's pretty much why we're here today. We're doing a focused deep dive, looking really closely at a set of sources you've provided about Donald Trump.
Right.
And this material, it covers a huge range. His legal situation right now, politics, but also past allegations, the economy, even critiques of how his administration handled things. It's quite broad.
So our mission today, like always with these deep dives, is basically to be your guides through all that. Help cut through the noise. Mm-hmm. We'll pull out the key bits of info, the important insights from these sources, and help make sense of what really matters, according to them. So you walk away feeling informed, prepared, but hopefully not totally overwhelmed.
Sounds good. Let's dive in.
Okay. Let's start with the current political and legal landscape. Mm-hmm. Your sources point to some interesting trends in public opinion first.
Yeah, there's a generic poll mention from Atlas Intel. They're identified as a top pollster for 2024 in the material.
Right.
And that shows Democrats leading Republicans 51% to 43%.
Okay, so that's the generic ballot. What about Trump specifically?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. Alongside those numbers, his individual approval ratings, Ipsos data has him around 41%.
41.
Yeah, and other polls mentioned show him even lower, like mid to high 30s. The material you gave us actually uses the word plummeting to describe it.
Plummeting? Okay.
And tied into that, Pam Bondi's negative perception is apparently climbing too. Around 61% now, according to the sources.
Wow. So those numbers together, they definitely paint a picture, don't they?
They do. A specific snapshot from these sources for sure.
Okay. So beyond polls, your sources really zero in on the legal front. Mm-hmm. Seems very active for Mr. Trump. What are the sort of high stakes cases highlighted?
Well, one huge one is the $10 billion lawsuit against Rupert Murdoch and the Wall Street Journal.
$10 billion. Wow.
Yeah, claiming damage to his reputation. But, the material you shared immediately presents a counter-argument, a pretty strong one.
Oh, what's the counter?
It questions the whole reputation claim given, his past. It points to his status as a felon being found liable for sexual abuse.
Okay.
Mentions that audio recording where he calls Jeffrey Epstein a great guy. And it brings up Epstein's alleged use of Mar-a-Lago for sex trafficking underage girls like Virginia J.
So the source is directly challenging the basis of the lawsuit.
Pretty directly, yeah. And the Wall Street Journal itself apparently claims Trump drew a doodle in a 50th birthday card sent to Epstein. The source seems to think the WSJ really has the goods on this particular point.
That's quite specific. And isn't there another recent legal development? Something about Bob Woodward.
That's right. He apparently just lost his lawsuit against Woodward over the publication of those audio interviews from 2022.
What was his argument there?
His claim was that he owned the copyrights to his voice in those recordings.
This is his voice. Okay.
Yeah. And a Judge Gardy in New York, notably a Republican appointee, ruled against him.
So another loss.
Right. And the material kind of frames this as part of a pattern, suggesting that, when people stand up to Donald Trump in court, he can lose. They call it a significant court loss.
Interesting. And how does the media angle play into this, according to the sources, particularly with the Wall Street Journal suit?
Well, the material points out this push from Florida GOP representatives, MAGA Republicans, urging all Republicans to cancel their Wall Street Journal subscriptions.
Why?
Calling the publication woke.
Woke, okay.
And what's really highlighted is that this specific story, the call to cancel subscriptions, is apparently only being covered by right-wing media. The sources note zero coverage from the left, which they find kind of striking.
That's an interesting observation about the media ecosystem there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The sources also bring up resurfacing allegations and some controversial connections from his past. This part gets pretty heavy.
It does.
Starting with scrutiny of past conduct, there's mention of an upcoming Midas exclusive. Midas being described as a investigative publication.
Right. It's apparently about footage, photos, videos from a 1991 beauty pageant Trump held.
Okay.
And the sources really emphasize the ages of the girls involved. They say 14 to 26, but with, quote, many of them kind of 14, 16 to 17.
14, wow.
The description of the content in the material is stark. absolutely disgusting. And it mentions resurfacing stories that Trump would frequently comment on their genitals.
That's incredibly disturbing information presented in these sources.
Yeah, and it's presented alongside another incident from 1996, an accusation from a businesswoman, Lisa Boyne.
What did she allege?
She accused Trump of forcing models to walk on restaurant tables so he could, quote, stick his head under their skirts. She called him disgusting and sexist.
Goodness. Okay. So these are specific allegations resurfacing. And the sources seem to draw connections beyond these incidents, mentioning Jeffrey Epstein again and someone named John Casablancas.
Exactly. It paints a picture of a kind of web. We already touched on the audio of Trump calling Epstein a great guy.
Right.
But there's more detail from a CNN interview with an ex-girlfriend of Epstein's. She apparently described Trump and Epstein as bros, and wingmen said they loved each other.
Bros, okay.
Yeah, and she even told this story about Epstein having to go check on Trump once because Trump was supposedly unwell and very upset about something that had happened.
And when did this close relationship supposedly start, according to the source?
The material mentions them being reintroduced at a Christmas party Trump threw at the Plaza Hotel back in 1992. And that's supposedly when their, quote, very, very close bond really formed.
1992. So a long time. And who is John Casablancas? How does he fit in, according to these documents?
So Casablancas founded Elite Model Management. He died in 2013. Trump apparently had a partnership with Elite.
Okay.
And the allegations against Casablancas himself, as laid out in your sources, are pretty severe. Accused of sexually assaulting a 15-year-old girl, making her his girlfriend, later leaving his wife for a 17-year-old.
Wow. Heavy stuff.
Yeah. And the source material makes a direct claim that Elite Model Management had, quote, all of the sexual abuse going on, and it explicitly connects Trump's partnership to that environment.
So the sources are drawing a line between Trump's business dealings and these alleged environments.
That seems to be the implication. The material even notes an intention, presumably by the source creators, to explore these connections further. Trump Epstein, Trump Ghislaine Maxwell, and Trump Casablancas.
Okay, it's a lot of very serious allegations and connections being raised there. Now, shifting again, these political and legal things, they don't happen in a vacuum. The sources also link some of this to the economy, right? Something hitting people's wallets.
Definitely. The sources talk about inflation, connecting it to everyday things like, you know, having a barbecue or just buying food.
Yeah, anyone shopping lately feels that. What specific examples do the sources give?
Well, orange juice is a big one. Up 54%, it says. 54.
54%. For orange juice, why?
The material explicitly links this to Donald Trump declaring a trade war against Brazil. Brazil being identified as the #1 exporter of OJ to the U.S.
Okay, so a direct line drawn there by the source. What else?
Basic stuff, too. Ground beef, the average price reportedly hit $6.12 a pound in June. That's up almost 12% from a year ago.
Wow.
Uncooked beef steak up 8% to nearly $11.50 a pound. This is according to U.S. government data cited in the material.
So these are real, tangible increases, and tariffs seem to be a key theme.
Yeah, the sources talk about a massive spike in the overall effective tariff rate, averaging somewhere around 19% plus, and they project this could have catastrophic consequences.
19% average tariff rate. That's high. And going back to Brazil and orange juice, the sources suggest there might be more to those tariffs than just trade.
Well, yeah, the material alleges quite specifically that one reason Donald Trump tariffs Brazil by 50% is because he, quote, wants the government to release Jair Bolsonaro.
Release Bolsonaro. How does a tariff on Brazil connect to that? And maybe remind listeners who Bolsonaro is, according to these sources.
Right. It's presented as a potential geopolitical maneuver, not just economics. The sources describe Bolsonaro pretty harshly. A crook, a criminal, someone who tried to do an insurrection in Brazil.
Okay.
He was subsequently arrested, has an ankle bracelet, and is apparently barred from talking to foreign officials. Why? Because of suspicion he was coordinating with what the sources called the Trump regime to flee Brazil.
So the allegation is using trade pressure for political aims related to an ally.
That's the explicit claim made in the material, yeah. It even includes the line, crooks hang out with crooks, to underscore the alleged link.
Okay, that's a very strong claim. Let's move on to critiques of public conduct and domestic policy found in the sources. There are descriptions of some, let's say, unusual public appearances.
Yeah. Bizarre press conference is the term used for one. Apparently Donald Trump referred to the head of Japan, the head of Toyota, and the head of Honda as Mr. Japan, Mr. Toyota, and Mr. Honda.
Just generically like that.
And using, according to the source, a weird Japanese accent while doing it.
Okay.
And another incident highlighted is when he was asked questions about Epstein and reportedly just literally ran out of the room.
Wow.
That's the description. And based on these kinds of incidents, the sources offer a really blunt characterization, calling him a cognitively adult, lazy nutcase in the Oval Office who just embarrasses us every day.
That's very strong language from the source material.
Extremely critical, yes.
So, beyond conduct, what about policy decisions? And responses to crises? The sources seem critical there too.
They are. There's a claim that the Trump regime has shut down civil rights work, and that this work is slowing as Trump dismantles the Department of Education.
Okay.
And again, the sources note that right-wing media isn't covering this particular issue.
And disaster response. I think Texas floods were mentioned.
Yes, a major critique regarding the response to recent flash floods in Texas. Over 100 people still missing at the time the source was created. Over 100 deaths.
Terrible tragedy.
It is. And the material contrasts the official line Department of Homeland Security Secretary Christine saying it was a perfect response, FEMA doing great work, with very specific criticisms from the source.
What were those criticisms?
Things like not activating urban search and rescue for 72 hours, shutting down call centers and not paying for them, so people couldn't even contact FEMA.
72 hours for search and rescue. Wow.
And firing 6 key National Weather Service personnel, including the main meteorologist coordinator right before this happened.
Firing weather experts before major floods.
That's the claim. And it goes to the local level too. Alleged failures like building a camp in a known flood zone where one had never been before. Not accepting certain warning systems.
Okay.
And even an allegation of taking $10 million from the Biden administration meant for warning systems and instead using it to, quote, line your own pockets and give bonuses.
Misusing funds meant for safety.
That's the serious allegation presented. The source material mentions Camp Mystic and this place called God Mountain, saying it would have taken young girls there just 4 minutes to reach safety if things had been handled differently.
Heartbreaking detail.
Yeah. And the sources then tie all these alleged failures back to what they describe as the MAGA ideology, characterized as hating government, calling everything's woke, and fundamentally not liking science. It's a very pointed critique.
It really is. Okay, well, that brings us towards the end of this particular deep dive. We've covered just a remarkable amount of ground, haven't we?
We really have. Yeah. From the political polling and the very intense legal battles.
Right, to these really disturbing resurfacing allegations about past conduct, the Epstein and Casablancas connections.
Then the economic side, the tariffs, the inflation hitting everyday items, the whole Brazil-Bolsonaro angle.
And finally, these pointed critiques of public behavior, and crucially, the alleged failures in policy and disaster response.
The way these sources weave all these different threads together is quite something.
It really is. It shows just how complex and, frankly, interconnected the narratives surrounding a figure like Donald Trump can be, especially when you look at a curated set of sources like this.
Absolutely. It's a lot to take in, and these sources definitely present a specific, often critical viewpoint on events.
So as we wrap up, what does this all mean for you listening? We want to leave you with a final thought to chew on.
Yeah, something to consider.
In this age where we get information about public figures from so many different places, so many sources, often conflicting, how do we, as citizens trying to stay informed, actually put all these pieces together? How do we synthesize these often competing narratives to get a real sense of the full picture?
And maybe even more importantly, what's our responsibility to question not just the facts presented, but also the potential motivations behind them, the implications of the stories being told?
Good questions. Something to ponder. We hope this deep dive helps shed some light on the information contained within your sources without adding to the feeling of being overwhelmed.
We'll be back soon to tackle another set of materials. Until then.